almost fully implements the project per the vision. Although we are going to have to still wait on those light poles. And as you can see, they're under, they're still under construction, being fabricated, may not be installed till spring. But the main parts of the project are going to be happening soon. Looking forward to that. Next slide. Wanted to share with you, this is the governor's budget that just came out, and it's going to be tight. We are all very aware that they're going to have to come up with a combination of cuts and revenue. So the good thing is we made at least the governor's budget. So we have the Warren Avenue Bridge, forest widening project, and the Parish Creek fish barrier removal. We'll keep a close eye on that. This is not something that we should just think is going to sail. I think you are already aware of that. The public should know the legislature has a tough job ahead of them to decide what projects stay funded and what projects are removed. It'll be our job to articulate and especially and to highlight the importance of our projects, especially to the entire region, why we need these to happen, either at the city level with the Warren Avenue Bridge, where we all agree 3 feet 11 inches is not a doable long-term solution. We've already lived with that too long for passable sidewalks. Forest widening project, we're way overdue on this project, and the conditions are worsening every day, and it affects our economy, our way of life, and ultimately it affects the Defense Department's mission and our national security. So we're going to keep pushing these projects with information, pushing out the information. I think we'll do well if we stay on top of it. Next slide. So I do want to wish you a happy holidays. I think this is a time to look at the things we have and to have appreciation for the good things in life, and with understanding that not everybody is having a great life or great circumstances right now, but we can reach out. All of us have that capacity and ability to reach out and extend a hand. And I do want to close though with maybe sharing a little bit of what we do here. Very rarely, but we do. We have some fun at City Hall, and we're going to be having the very first. This is not a scientific process we went through this year. It came together quick, but we have 3 finalists for the best costume in the city, and I'd like to call the 3 finalists up. And one of them is Kylie Fennell, our city attorney, Mike Riley, the city finance director, and Jennifer Chamberlain, council president. And so what I'm hoping for, and I appreciate the applause, because that's how we're going to award the winner of the inaugural costume contest. That's how we're going to grade them. So as I said, this is not scientific this year. It's very unscientific formula and process we put together. And so I'm gonna start off with calling them out each one by one, and then I want to hear some applause. And thank you for participating, by the way. So first up, if I could get you all to line up there, kind of yeah, and let's make sure BCAT can see you. You're looking pretty good. Yes, that's close to a lineup. Okay, first up, I'm going to ask the finance director, Mike Riley. Raise your hand. Let's get some. Let's see what. Okay, that was pretty good. That was pretty good, actually. All right, next up, the council president, Jennifer Chamberlain. Right. All right, there was some solid response there. Solid support. All right. This now the we're not, this is not preordained that this individual is going to win. We all have to earn it, but this is Kylie Fennell, our legal department leader. All right, we have a winner for the first inaugural City of Bremerton Halloween costume contest. It is Kylie Finnell. Wonderful second place. Thank you both. You tied for second place. Honorable mention for Garrett Jackson. Garrett, if you could stand up just for a minute. He's got a llama shirt that is pretty unique. So thank you, council. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you. I look forward to a very productive 2025. Thank you.
Well, I'm a little disappointed I didn't win, but Kylie brought it, Attorney Fennell, she really brought it this year. All right. So with that, I just wanted to kind of let everybody know this is going to be a new tradition. Next year's council president will also be competing in this costume contest, whoever that may be. All right. And now we will go to the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Chamberlain. For approval on the consent agenda are the following items. A, claim and check register. Approval of the following checks and electronic fund transfers. One, check numbers 409333 through 409544, and EFT numbers V42409 through V42523. And the grand total amount is $7,003,172.08. Two, regular payroll for pay period ending November 30th, 2024 in the amount of $1,109,127.41. Three, regular payroll payout for pay period ending November 30th, 2024 in the amount of $2,915.40. B, minutes of council meeting, December 4th, 2024. C, minutes of study session, December 4th, 2024. D, minutes of study session, December 11th, 2024. E, contract modification agreement number 2 with Common Street Consulting LLC for homelessness response property management program services. F, ordinance number 5504 to grant renewal of the telecommunications franchise with Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC. G, local agency contract with Seconti Inc. for the 6th Street Phase 3 pavement preservation project. H, professional services agreement with Kennedy Jinks for the Tracyton Beach Road Sewer Improvements Project. I, ordinance number 5505 to amend ordinance number 5487, establishing the City of Bremerton's fiscal year 2024 budget as amended by ordinance number 5495. J, contract modification agreement number 1 with Columbia Hospitality Inc. for the management and operation of the Kitsap Conference Center. K, contract modification agreement number 1 with Columbia Hospitality Inc. for the management and operations of Gold Mountain Golf Course. And L, resolution number 3391 to adopt the City Council's 2025 legislative priorities. This concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Clerk Hoover. Next up, we have the opportunity for citizens to comment on one of the items on the consent agenda. And we just ask that you state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. We have a light system. Green light means 3 minutes. Yellow light means 30 seconds. I'll probably say 30 seconds. And red light means I'm going to cut you off, and so I can be equitable to everybody. Does any member of the public wish to comment on one of the consent agenda items?
Is that something that is not on the agenda?
It's something on the consent agenda, which is items.
I looked at it.
Okay, all right. We'll have public recognition shortly.
Good evening, Council. My name is Hannah. I'm a resident of Bremerton on the ancestral lands of the Squamish and S'Klallam tribes. Today, I would like to comment on the Common Street Consulting Contract Modification Consent Agenda item and the city's current approach in utilizing property management consultants to administer and perform homelessness sweeps. I was unable to express my public comment back when this was discussed in November, as I'm still trying to find the appropriate cadence and context of scope in attending these sessions. But I'm here today, and although the contract with Common Street LLC already exists until December of next year, Here are some prompts for curiosity as the city maintains that contractual obligation. Whose needs are being centered in the activity of a sweep? Is it the city's need to address a public health crisis as defined by their public health experts? Is it law enforcement's need to preserve the right to safety of their housed Bremerton citizens? Is it all of the above? Because even if it is all of the above, where is the voice of the one experiencing the crisis and homelessness and all of that? How are the meaningful interactions defined by both the human in crisis and the contractor seeking to create a connection to housing resources? That critical feedback leads to sussing out the root of the housing issues that these humans are experiencing. And although my personal opinion that the source of all housing issues are rooted in the business of capitalism, oligarchy, and ideals of white supremacy, the reality is that there are available resources and they need to be accessed quickly using the channels with which they are created in order to meet the need of the human experiencing the crisis. And although creating those connections to resources are within Common Street's scope of work, upon the first moment the LLC engages with an encampment, everyone in that situation knows that the goal of that interaction is to clear the encampment. I read a quote from Police Chief Wolf this summer that compassion without accountability is just cruelty, and I don't disagree with that actually. I agree with that sympathy for someone suffering without solutions does enable the same conditions and environments for suffering to perpetuate. However, when the moment of trying to connect people with housing services is scaffolded on an activity that displaces you no matter the conversation, you lose trust from those you speak of having compassion for. This lack of trust might account for the 3.5 and 5% housing rates reported out by the contractor, and may be why city resources are being authorized to
30
account for
seconds.
securities in those situations. So that's why I would encourage leading with curiosity about the crisis of housing before the outright displacement of a human in crisis, trying their best to meet their own needs with the scarcity of resources accessible to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other member of the public wish to comment on one of the consent agenda items? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to council for a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Councilmember Frye,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yeah.
Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Next up, we have public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry, public recognition. And as indicated on the agenda, public recognition provides an opportunity for attendees to address the council on any issue not already on tonight's agenda. There will be no public comments accepted via Zoom tonight, as no prior arrangements prior to 24 hours in advance were made through the city clerk. And you can do so by calling 360-473-5323. Again, it has to be 24 hours in advance to receive approval to speak via Zoom. And again, we only ask that you state your name for the record, limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. The timer system, we have a pro up here who knows the timer system. And everybody will be treated fairly. And I'll go ahead and open up public recognition.
Mary Lou Long, a longtime resident of Bremerton. I'm here to end the year as I started off the year with Pledge of Allegiance. If anyone would like to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, you can do so now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So this is the season of Christmas. It's the season of the remembrance of the birth of Christ. We remember it every day with our calendar. Our calendar was based on the Gregorian calendar. They call it the Common Era, which is the era we live in now. But it still refers to the fact that the first year that's marked is the one that was Anno Domini, which is after Christ's born. And our minds at this point in time revert to childhood delights, I wish that every one of us can touch that invisible spark of love for each other that God implanted in us when we started life and share it in the coming year ahead. God bless everyone. So said Tiny Tim from the imaginative and delightful message laden story, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I want to say I thank the city for cleaning up the mess on East Finney Bay Drive and the continued work there. Sad to hear that the gentleman that owned the property, Mr. Paplow, passed away this year after probably enduring a very hellish life with the drug traffickers that took over his home. It should have happened earlier that he was helped and removed from that situation, but as it is, it's what it is. And I just think our neighborhood appreciates the fact that the city is doing something to clean up nuisance houses in our community. I, for one, do not like the idea of being in a community that has a proliferation of pot stores, tattoo parlors, drug trafficking, and nuisance
30
houses.
seconds.
So I really appreciate the cleaning up of the city of Bremerton. I visit Gig Harbor, Paulsbo, and Silverdale, and I don't see the same kind of things there that I've seen in the city of Bremerton in the past few years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. With all due respect, thank you for giving me the space. Martita May, co-founder of Kayak, Kitsap Mesa Redonda, CARE, 9/11 SOS, and Professional Leaders of Color. I'm here tonight because I would like to recognize and to congratulate Happy International Migrant Day. So I just wanted to recognize all the immigrants who makes a huge difference here in this country for their contributions, and just to say, I am so happy that we are here supporting this community and enrichment with our culture. And I just want to say, we are not alone. We have places here that you can receive support. And also, I would like to just acknowledge that with the upcoming homelessness that you have an agenda for the support I know you have for the program, for the service program. If you can consider having a bilingual personnel at the shelter, the new shelter, really needed to have a bilingual. When you hire a person, please consider having bilingual. We know that Spanish is the second language more spoken in this country. So I really thank you in advance for your consideration. Thank you, and Feliz Navidad. Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Happy holidays. I'm Kerry Bozeman and I live in Bremerton and I'm the former mayor of this town and I was honored to be that. I looked at my files today and I remembered this is the 20th birthday of this building. And I thought I should come down and remind us all about how this wonderful project came about. It's one of the unique projects in the United States. I don't know that it's been duplicated. 6 different government agencies came together to share government space and to finance it. And it's unique in this country. So let me go back when we first started thinking about this in 2001, and my predecessor, Lynn Horton, had been involved in this before I came, but it kind of dropped by the wayside because two things happened. One, the county was going to be involved in this, and they were going to have 50,000 square feet of office space in this building. And the Port Orchard people got wind of it and decided that we were in effect going to be moving the county seat. And they filed a complaint against us and they won. And so the county pulled 50,000 square feet out of the plan for this building, which really almost got everybody thinking we could never pull this off. But But something really unique happened. The city put together an agreement with the Kitsap Housing Authority under the direction of Norm McLaughlin, who was a genius in financing in many ways. And he was retained by the city to act as a redevelopment agency for the city. This had never been done before, and we had to go to the legislature for special legislation to allow the county housing authority to be the redevelopment agency for the city on this project, because they could do funding, they could borrow money that cities couldn't do. And it was challenged in court and we won, and they became our financing agent and our redevelopment agency. The basic financing plan was that they would sell tax exempt, excuse me for reading this, but I had to go back in my files and remember this, tax exempt revenue bonds based on securing 25-year leases from 6 different government agencies. Then they could borrow the money to build this wonderful building. And so the city of Bremerton was a partner, the Bremerton Housing Authority, the Kitsap Housing Authority, the
30
Kitsap Health
seconds.
Department, and the Port of Bremerton. And I remember we were still trying to line up the leases. And I remember going to Scott Lindquist, the head of the health department, and he said, Kerry, we can't do this. We can't afford it. And I said, Scott, you know, the people you serve deserve to be served in a better facility than what you're providing now. And he looked at me, he said, damn it, Mayor, you got me on that one. So we're in. So they signed on.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozeman. I appreciate the history. You have a wonderful day.
Oh,
It's 3 minutes. It's public comment.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Me again. Hello, Hannah, resident of Bremerton, ancestral lands of the Squamish and S'Klallam tribes, and I'm here as a participant of the Kitsap for Racial Justice organization to both elevate the voices of partner organizations Kitsap Advocating for Immigrant Rights and Equality and Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, as well as vocalize my own growing concern for my immigrant neighbors as we prepare to enter a presidency, one on a platform of mass deportations using force. So I'm here to present and remind both council and residents of the Keep Washington Working Act of 2019. As it is state law, we are seeking explicit reassurance from the city and law enforcement that the citizens of the city are protected from additional harassment and threats of that deportation. The Keep Washington Working Act aims to safeguard immigrant rights using the following. It prevents local police from collaborating with federal immigration police or ICE officials. It prohibits local and state government agencies from collecting or sharing personal information, including birthplace and immigration or citizenship status, with federal immigration authorities. It bans the detention of individuals solely on the basis of suspected civil immigration violations. It prohibits contracts between local jails and federal immigration authorities, and it prohibits law enforcement from detaining anyone to determine their immigration status. However, the act allows for counties to opt out of these policies with the exception that they provide specific reasoning to the Attorney General's office for exemption, and that they have stand-in policies that are in accordance to state law as it is defined. As such, Kitsap County Sheriff was one of the handful of counties that opted to not outright adopt policies consistent with the AGO's guidance and instead submitted Policy 421 and Policy 427 to satiate the exemption requirement. Within these policies, most of the recommendations from the AGO are accounted for, with the exception of language in Policy 427, Section 4, that states the office may provide available support services such as traffic control or peacekeeping efforts, which is in direct conflict to language in the Keep Washington Working Act, SB 5497.5.1. Therefore, I am requesting that Bremerton City Council, Mayor, and law enforcement work to ensure that the city's policies are aligned to reflect that state law, and would invite council's sustained partnership to keep our vulnerable Bremerton neighbors safe from the
30
oncoming storm.
seconds.
Happy holidays in the diversity of whatever it is that you celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to remind our participants that you're always welcome to submit your comments through city.council@ci.bremerton.wa.us. Sometimes it's great to have a follow-up that's written. We're not really allowed to accept paperwork here at the dais, but we would love to read your public comment later in detail.
Naomi Levine, Bremerton City resident. I feel really nervous to make the comment that I'm about to make because I've definitely gotten some flack for it over the years, being in the kind of smaller group of people who are impacted by this request. But I think that the separation of church and state should apply to public comment. I'm frankly tired of it not being that way. And I don't feel necessarily safe making that comment. And I hear the whispers behind me about it. I'm somebody who's dealt with a lot of violence because of people who don't like to respect that decision. I've been kidnapped by people who don't respect that decision and forced into scenarios that weren't safe for me. And while that's maybe not the circumstances of everyone from my community, that is something that some people in my community have faced. And I don't know what can be done about it. I'm not certainly someone who thinks that the freedom of speech is something we should take away from people, but I do think that there's some limits on it. And one of those limits is the very real law that we have of the separation of church and state. There's reasons that exist, and I am sick of your whispering behind me. Shut up. And that's my comments for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other member of the public have anything to add for public recognition?
I guess that's me. I'm Jose Camacho. I'm a member of Friends of Smith Cove and Rock the Block. I'm kind of here in those two capacities. I'm a Puerto Rican. My parents are economic refugees from Puerto Rico, the nation that has been colonized and gaslighted by my fellow Americans. And I don't appreciate when the legal process is tampered with by corrupt officials, because that means I'm not safe. I've given the mayor and DCD and the city copious notice that this town bent so far over backward for Soundwest Group that it broke the law, vitiated the Shoreline Management Act, and it intends to carry that forward into the comprehensive plan. In response to a year of my complaints, the mayor has installed Wesley Arthur Larson's partner into the planning commission. Jack Paul doesn't belong there. This is my assertion that that whole scenario, that fiasco, making the planning commission into a kangaroo court, is a violation of the appearance of fairness doctrine. Now, there are specific S&P provisions that make the shoreline a cash cow for Soundwest Group and other members of the realtor developer cartel in this town. So the rigging of the Evergreen Point is a roadmap for it. You want to know what happened? There are Public Record Act requests I made, which are now open for anyone to grab onto. They're public. The rigging is both Map E and it's day-to-day permitting decisions, which DCD made, in which they just flouted Merkel versus Port of Brownsville, the exemption statute. They just ran roughshod over that to make sure that they delivered a special favor for Soundwest Group. The other thing, I've been homeless. I understand that. I've slept on the ground. I've used the bathroom outside. For years, Rock the Block, I'm thinking of Jocelyn right now,
30 seconds.
have begged for porta potties. Still hasn't happened. Money has been preened about, applauded, kudos, and nothing becomes of it. 100,000 was given to Mayor by Chris Tibbs. I did a Public Record Act request. Nothing. There's no record of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alden Bradford. I want to chime in about some numbers that I looked up earlier this year that are relevant to some things that other people were saying. Roughly 1 in 5 people in Kitsap County don't speak English as their first language, not their main language at home. I was surprised to learn that, but that's from the 2020 census. Um, you wouldn't know that to look at the way we conduct our public proceedings and the documents we produce. English is not the official language of the United States. It wasn't even the most common language in the United States when it was founded. I think it was German. Um, but it's important to keep that in mind, that a lot of the people in Kitsap County are excluded from the way that we run our government when we do things mostly only in English. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other member of the public wish to comment during public recognition? Come on, oh, come on up, come on up. Thank you. So public recognition during the council meeting should be done at the podium if possible. Does any other member of the public wish to comment today during public recognition? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public recognition, move on to the next item. The next item is public hearing. I'll go to Clerk Hoover to read.
Public hearing on ordinance number 5506 to amend Bremerton Municipal Code Titled 20 to achieve permit procedures compliant with Senate Bill 5290. Presenter is Planning Manager Garrett Jackson.
All right, thank you and happy holidays. We are here to talk about some potential permit changes for zoning code amendments brought up to you by the state of Washington. The Planning Commission's recommendation, they unanimously recommend the adoption of the proposed zoning code amendments that council should hold an open record public hearing, consider testimony and adopt the proposed changes. The process that got us here tonight is up on the screen. The Planning Commission held a public workshop in October. It was followed by a review from the Department of Commerce of the proposed ordinance and SEPA review. And then the Planning Commission had a public hearing in November. Last week, we had the City Council study session. It brings us here tonight to the City Council public hearing. The Planning Commission's recommendation, including comments received, are in the findings and conclusions of your packet. So Washington State regulates how jurisdictions do permitting through the Local Project Review Act. And that was amended by SB 5290 in 2023. And that revised that state statute to require increased permit efficiencies. And that takes effect in January 1, 2025. Other guidance from the state includes the Growth Management Act, where processing permit applications in a timely and fair manner is included as one of the 15 goals of the Growth Management Act. We also have some guidance from our regional planning partners at Puget Sound Regional Council. Their guiding document, Vision 2050, notes that local governments can stimulate development through streamlined development review and permitting processes. And our own comprehensive plan in the housing element and economic development element both call for efficient permit review in the city. So our proposed changes are best characterized through 3 general categories. 1, through permit process updates, 2, increased permit efficiencies, and 3, non-5290 requirements through additional measures and housekeeping. So first of all, permit process updates. Currently, the city has 120 days to issue a decision on a permit. The state, through 5290, changed that to the following, where you would have 65 days for a project permit that does not require public notice, 100 days for projects that do require public notice, and 170 days for permits that both require public notice and a public hearing. Updated permit timelines would not apply to building permits, fire department permits, or permits where coordination on cultural resources are required. Cultural resources, we coordinate with the Suquamish tribe for specific properties that may contain culturally significant items. In increased permit efficiencies, you can see here up on the screen a matrix of options. The state requires that we have permit refunds if we don't meet those established timelines. And as an alternative to refunds, you are allowed to select 3 of these 10 options available that provide increased permit efficiencies instead of that refund option. The 3 options that we'll go over here tonight are bolded. Those are recommended by the Planning Commission. The remaining items are described in the packet. So optional pre-submittal application conference. Currently, pre-submittal application conferences are required for certain permit types. These informal meetings enable applicants to give feedback on preliminary project proposals from planning, building, public works, the fire marshal, and others. The cost for this permit is $100, which makes it an excellent incentive for early coordination with the city. To meet this criteria, the permit would transition from being required to being optional under the proposed code. So required public hearings is another increased permit efficiencies item. Where if a public hearing is not required by state statute, then that would then be transitioned to not having a public hearing in the proposed code. Affected code sections are listed here in this matrix on the screen and also described more fully in the packet. While these permit types are proposed to transition from a public hearing, they would still maintain a public comment period. Okay, outright permitted housing uses. So another efficiency measure is to transition housing uses that are currently required a conditional use permit to being an outright permitted use. The housing types that apply are here on the screen: cottage housing, group residential class 1, senior housing complex, and manufactured home park. These would retain their criteria of approval, but transition from a conditional use permit to an outright permitted use. We have some examples of what those housing types might look like in the city today. A manufactured home park, there's an example here from Price Road out by Kitsap Lake. Senior housing complex, there is an example called the Vintage out on Sheridan. Group residential class 1, there's a development called the Arbor on 9th Street that's south of Kitsap Way. And cottage housing, there's an example that predates our code on Snyder Avenue of cottage housing. So additional measures and housekeeping. The design review board. So the design review board process relates to preliminary project design within the downtown subarea plan and Harrison Heights subarea plan. Both proposed alterations would transition the building permit from a type 2 to a type 1 permit. Type 2 requires public comment and a potential appeal. A type 1 permit does not. The current design review board process includes a conceptual design conference that is a required public meeting and a response conference, which is also a public meeting. For a development to get from the conceptual design response public meeting, response public comment meeting, and then the building permit leaves a lot of uncertainty for that development to actually come to fruition that late in the process. Thus, we're proposing it is transitioned to a type 1. Currently, okay, so applicant response time. Currently, our code allows an applicant 90 days to provide any response to a permit. So we send a review letter requesting additional materials. The applicant then has 90 days to respond back to us. With these shortened timelines, it lessens the amount of time that staff has to get a decision issued. So for that reason, we're proposing to shorten that from 90 days to 60 days, where applicants must provide a response to the city. Additionally, on the third request for information from the city, if we ask for the same thing 3 times from an applicant that's not provided, the city would then be enabled to lapse that permit. Once again, trying to meet those shorter timelines and having the applicant respond in a more timely manner. Additional measures in housekeeping, informational signage. So in past city council meetings, the council has wanted staff and the planning commission to consider increased signage for increased public awareness for upcoming development. That sometimes there has been complaints that the first time someone knows that a parcel is going to be developed is when you see a bulldozer outside. And so with that in mind, we have this current proposal where informational signage would be posted on the site from the time that an application is deemed complete till the time that it gets final occupancy. It would be a staff provided sign and provide details on the proposed development and project contact information. At the study session last week, the city council requested that staff coordinate with the city attorney on potentially revising this code, making some tweaks, and we did that. And the revised code is in the ordinance that's in the packet today, and an email sent to council describing what those changes are in the packet as well. Those changes would provide more public notice for commercial projects and just generally streamline that language, which was a little bit duplicative. And once again, the Planning Commission recommendation, it was they unanimously recommend adoption of the proposed zoning code amendments, and that council should hold an open record public hearing, consider testimony, and adopt the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Jackson, thank you very much for your presentation and for your very awesome llama sweater representing. Okay, so we are going to open up the public hearing, and the purpose of the public hearing is to accept public comment. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
I limited 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yes. Oh, and Mr. Camacho, hold on just a moment. What I'd like to do during this public comment is, if we could, I'd love for the public to ask a series of questions, and if there is going to be a reply, and there's like, let's say 1 minute left, I'd like to pause the clock and offer that back to the public when they comment. Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Camacho, you're up.
Removing the need for a hearing and comment to truncate the building permit phase of the arc of the permitting of any project. In my personal experience as a resident of Evergreen Point, Evergreen Park community, where I learned that the Evergreen Point project was rigged for Sound West Group, that's where I discovered it. Our community discovered that project was rigged during the building permit phase of it. Because previously, the site plan phase of it, no one caught on. The city stripped all mention of the Shoreline Management Act from that part of it. They violated the idea of segmentation. Segmentation is prohibited by like only 50 years of jurisprudence, Merkel versus Port of Brownsville. We asked them what changed between how you treated Goldberg and how you're treating Larson. And they didn't tell us. They basically just continue to deceive us. To this day, they are doing it. So this idea of making the building permit basically a phase where people across the street, residents of projects, we are silenced. We were silenced. They actually did get away with it. We didn't make the deadline. I went to the DCD office to ask for guidance and papers, and I was misled. To this day, after a year of public record act requests, I still do not have a full application that was submitted by Sound West Group. I have a first page and the last page. The last page has a signature, like a sandwich with nothing in between. A year. But the city is willing to risk Public Record Act penalties, now accruing at over $30,000. They're willing to risk that. They're willing to be found guilty of felony misappropriation because all the benefits go to Sound West Group, not the public good, not the general welfare. So this idea of the building permit being like a nothing burger, let's just let it go on, huge mistake. That is an opportunity for the people in the know, the people who live right at the site,
30 seconds.
to give the city information. Big mistake.
Thank you. Okay. And we have online Ian Harkins.
Good evening, council members. My name is Ian Harkins here on behalf of Kitsap Building Association. Again, we strongly support the city's ordinance addressing the new permit timeline requirements as required by Senate Bill 5290. Again, we further encourage the city to consider additional options for ensuring timely and efficient review of permits, knowing that we are in a dire housing crisis where every single day a permit sits in review has a great effect on the end cost to the end user. So thank you very much to staff and to the council. We strongly support the ordinance as written.
Thank you. Does any other member of the public wish to comment on this item for public hearing? Okay, I am going to close public hearing and move to go to council for motion.
Move to pass, excuse me, ordinance number 5506 as recommended by the Planning Commission to amend Bremerton Municipal Code Title 20 to achieve permit procedures compliant with SB 5290. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Councilor Younger, would you like to comment first?
Well, thank you. We had a pretty in-depth discussion at last week's study session and a presentation similar to what you saw tonight by Mr. Jackson. So just keep in mind, for the public, a state law was passed and basically said you need to expedite, as the previous speaker just discussed, procedures so we can get more housing on the rolls quicker, faster, implement these designs.
Expediting cannot be written.
So
Sorry, you don't have the floor, sir.
So, and to bring up the point the gentleman just discussed, it was actually brought up during our study session about a posting of a sign, which this provision has for certain projects, but actually we brought up perhaps how about for any permit action, put up a sign. And then we were faced with all the repercussions that would bring and how that would slow down the process for people to be able to build their projects, to build their individual single family homes, to make additions, to add porches, et cetera, and really slow the process down. I don't think we are finished yet with addressing that, but nevertheless, we have this state law in front of us that says you shall do 3 of the following. And so we went through it and we agreed, hopefully we'll agree with the Planning Commission tonight, with the Planning Commission and the administration is recommending that we implement tonight. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry, you cannot speak. It's not your, thank you. Counselor Goodnow?
Yeah, I was gonna maybe ask for a clarification, but what I feel like what we're doing with the changing from a type 2 to a type 1, we're also moving the public comment up earlier in the process. Is that what is that? We're not getting rid of public comment, we're getting rid of it at one place and moving it to design review. Was that what you stated?
So that's the existing code. The existing process is public meeting and public comment with the design review process. It's just this last leg of the building permit that's would transition from a type 2 to a type 1. But currently, if a project requires design review, then you'd get two, there's a conceptual response conference and then a response conference after that. So, and with the proposed permitting changes for additional signage for informational signage, that type of project would be signed, receive a sign on the property much more early and throughout the permitting process.
So would it be your opinion that these changes will also help with allowing citizens to comment on projects?
The informational signage is for awareness, and the continued design review board process for the 2 design review board meetings would provide a public forum for comment.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Counselors, Counselor Coughlin.
Yep, thank you, Council President. Just wanted to quickly thank Councilmember Mockler for her leadership on adding a layer of transparency to what's going on in our city, and to council as a whole dedication to exploring and requiring these reasonable measures to make sure folks can know what's going on and have ability to comment, as we know that this is incredibly important. And I do want to thank our partners in the state for taking action to try and remove some inefficiencies in the permitting process. The number one cause of homelessness is a lack of housing and a lack of affordable housing. And so we are in a housing crisis. And so the ability to build that housing in a reasonable and informed manner is so critical. So thanks again to our state partners, to this council.
Counselor Mockler or Counselor Fry? Vice President Mockler, I should say. Vice President Mockler.
Why, yes, I would like to comment. So the RCW 36.70A.020 is asking us to process permit applications in a timely and fair manner. And I think that this should be fair to developers and fair to people who live here, both those things. Permit efficiencies moving forward to get more housing. We are not in a financial place where we can do the simple and obvious and easiest thing, which is to hire an additional permit technician. But we could make changes to the efficiency of our communication with permit applicants, which I've heard a lot of anecdotal grumbling about. For example, Mr. Jackson last week told us that they will send out a letter with 3 requests for information, and they will get back a response to only the first. This is something that a communications manager would point out, which is that people do not read past the first paragraph unless you make them. The first paragraph of such a letter, in my opinion, should, well, should state, there are 3 questions here. If you do not answer all 3, your permit will be delayed. That would be an improvement in efficiency. I guess I would like to push back against the pretty common perception that the people who live here would jump up and down if someone were building a porch. The type 1 permits, which are the most common type of permits, cover replacing a water heater, replacing a window, something that in City of Paulsbo is considered of no or limited public interest. they put in type 2 anything that is of public interest. And I think that the public interest should be of interest to our Department of Community Development as well. It is the people who live near that site who can say something like, you may not know this, but this floods every 5 years when these circumstances happen. Or you may not know this, but we have seen eagles roosting here every year for the past 5 years. This is information that only the community who live here can give to the Department of Community Development, and it's valuable information. The people who live here have value. So I would really hope that we could seek other ways of meeting what I agree with every other counselor, and I think everyone in this room, that we have got to find more housing. I just don't think we should do it by keeping the people of Bremerton in the dark. Every homeowner I know has at least 5 projects on the boil. Do you own a home? Do you have 5 projects that you're planning on? If someone were going to be putting in 5 units next door to you, might you want to go out and buy some trees and create a screening fence? Isn't that information you would like to have? It's Well, yeah, no, Eric's making, Counselor Younger is making a good point, which is, yes, they will have the information with the proposed information only signage, but they will not be able to comment on it. And this is being done solely because the people of Bremerton are viewed as, you know, people who don't want development. Almost everybody I run across is like, we want the development. We would like to work with DCD. And I'm going to close, Council President, by saying that trust in government just gets lower and lower with every passing day. It's not often that the first signal you get that someone's building near you is a bulldozer, but it often will be something that dramatic. Something as wonderful as the building that was purchased by Bremerton Housing Authority up on Wheaton Way. Everybody was asking me, what is that building? I don't know. A simple sign would have let people find out what was going on there. And they could have actually, and Councillor Fry has brought this up many times, that they could have actually been proud of their city. Yes, we're really happy that this is happening. So I would really like to urge once more that we adopt the language of City of Paulsboro coming into the close and stretch, um, which calls for all type 1 permits being only for activities that are of limited or no public interest, and that if projects are of public interest, that they become type 2 permits and require the regular notice of proposed land use action signs that you will occasionally see around Bremerton for larger projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Fry.
I feel very thankful to DCD for working with the state legislation and working with our planning commission on establishing what alternatives we're going to select. And I commend the planning commission. I don't give a shout out enough to our commissions and our committees, and especially our commissions that are full of volunteers who give a lot of hours. So when I hear that something's unanimously going through our planning commission, I pay attention to that. I respect that commission greatly, including its new member. But then I'm one, as you all know, that doesn't believe that developers are an F word. And I don't think that all of Bremerton believes that, but I do think around the country there's a lot of stereotypes about developers that we have to keep in mind as we work with them and their expertise. Without them, we don't get the housing. And that is the leading cause of homelessness. So thank you to our own department, Garrett, Andrea, thank you, Director Spencer. Thank you very much for all the work you've invested in this with council and the Planning Commission. Good job.
Thank you. And then my final comments, I'm assuming we all have had our turn on this, very in-depth, study session item, very in-depth discussion there. We're going to be, I believe it's in February, we're going to come back to discussing signage. I believe I have it on the agenda for late January, early February. I can't remember exactly right now, but we'll have a discussion item at one of our study sessions for that to hammer out the details. Just double check. Any other further comments? Yeah, Vice President Mockler.
We are sending something back to the Planning Commission that they've already said they had a difficulty with the informational signage, so we're asking them if they would like more detailed signage. So I'm looking forward to discussing this after the Planning Commission has had an opportunity to review it I think you're right, in February. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, let's vote.
Councilmember Coughlin,
Yes.
can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Good now?
Yes.
Mockler,
No.
Younger,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 yeses, 1 no.
All right, next up, we'll go to our general business item. And
General business item 7A, interlocal agreement with Bremerton Housing Authority for support of the hybrid homeless shelter using American Rescue Plan Act funds. Our presenter is Financial Services Director Mike Riley.
All right, thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor. So last Wednesday, we met to discuss the remaining unobligated funds, although they were budgeted in the 24 budget for the hybrid shelter model. We did not have an obligation agreement in place to obligate the funds. So what's in front of you tonight is an ILA with Bremerton Housing Authority, and Jill Stanton's here with us to answer any specific questions we might have. But really, it's the ILA to commit the $1.3 million. Of that, 1.1 is the Rescue Act funds that need to be committed by the end of this month, and also $200,000 of real estate excise tax that we committed to the project as well. This ILA will carry you through to the end of 2026 to make sure we expend the funds. Here to answer any questions.
thank you, Director Riley. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Okay. Give it another second or two. Okay. All right. Seeing no public comment, I'll go to council for a motion. Councilor Coughlin.
Thank you, Council President. I move to approve the interlocal agreement with Bremerton Housing Authority for support of the hybrid homeless shelter using American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds.
Vice President.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Councilor Coughlin, can you lead us off on this discussion?
Absolutely. I really appreciate this council nominating me to join the Affordable Housing Task Force in their weekly discussions and work towards this critical shelter project. And one of the first things that popped up on the radar when I did join to think of city issues was ensuring that this money was obligated by the end of the year. And so I really appreciate working both at the Affordable Housing Task Force and with having meetings with Director Riley to figure out how to move this forward, and his work meeting with Jill Stanton and BHA and others in drafting this agreement as well. And thanks to the council for supporting this and just making sure that we have this money obligated and that the task force can continue. It's very challenging, but very much in need work that they are doing for our community. So thanks again to the task force and to everybody who's making this possible.
Thank you, Vice President Mockler.
Don't let that man talk anymore. Um, thank you. Um, I'm really glad that we have the opportunity to form an interlocal agreement with the Bremerton Housing Authority. This council has been supporting the hybrid option and we are continuing to support it. Good luck to all.
Do any other counselors wish to comment on this item? Okay, I think that it's important. We did have a really in-depth discussion during our study session on this, but I want to make sure that the public does understand the implications of obligating the funds. And so just for public transparency, and this is not to throw shade on and I'm sorry, Director Riley, are you pointing to anything? No, okay, great. Not to throw shade on our community partners because I know they're working really hard. I wanted to find out if we had any movement towards any agreements on a site location for, or if a site location even needs to be decided before we can obligate these funds.
So I can answer the second part of that question.
Okay,
No, we don't need to have a site obligated. The ILA obligates the funds. So that will meet the requirement for the federal government. We'll be able to have those carry into the new year. We do have Jill Stanton here tonight, maybe you can shed light on the first question, but I don't have an answer for that for you.
thank you, Ms. Stanton. Thank you for being here for us too.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot to share on that. The
Okay.
team is really trying to keep things confidential until we have better and solid answers for you.
Okay. And so it can so the obligation of the funds extends and they need to be spent by the end of
2026.
Mhm. And is that contingent on the project being completed?
It's contingent on eligible costs. So the housing authority is working in multiple facets. There's the pallet house purchases. There's the
Okay.
site purchase potentially. There's design. There's operational funding. So they have a pretty wide avenue for what's eligible.
Okay.
So we'll be able to, as they have eligible costs to claim for reimbursement to the city, we'll be reimbursing the BHA through the ILA.
Great. So we can purchase some of the material costs and they can bill, theoretically, they would purchase them. We would be reimbursing them. It would be on a reimbursement and they could have them in storage while a site location is being chosen. That sort of thing could happen. Do you want to come up to thank you so much, Ms. Stanton. And
Yeah,
that
I guess I
mic
could
is way
update.
too tall.
I could just update you that we're trying to secure the 2024 pallet shelter pricing. So this will
Mhm.
help us to be able to do at least that piece of
Okay.
it.
Thank you. I think that we're looking forward to seeing the finish. Thank you. We can probably lower that too. We're looking forward to seeing this project happen and so grateful for your team for all the heavy lifting they're doing with all the other projects that you have to do and all the care that you're taking for our community and the housing needs. They have the diverse housing needs out there. So thank you, Ms. Stanton, for being here as representative for the task force. And I have no further questions for now. We'll have plenty of opportunities to check in with you in 2025 and maybe 2026, depending on who's up here, right? And with that, does any other counselors need any other time for questions or comments? Okay. So I guess we will vote on that. Meow. No. Sorry.
Councilmember Goodnow,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for sticking it out. We have the best part of the council meeting, which is council reports. And it's the last one of the year. So you might hear dad jokes. You might hear some funny things. I don't know. I don't know yet, but we'll go to Councilor Younger first, who always has at least 10 or 12 slides to share with us.
Thank you. I'm going to start off by saying the meeting was pretty jovial. We had a little contest and I enjoyed that. And then the rest of the meeting was a little dark, some serious topics and some speakers that spoke from their heart, and I respect that. I want to lighten it up a little. So first of all, you mentioned dad
I
jokes.
knew it.
I'm going to spare you. I do have a book my wife gave me because she's tired of mine, and it's called You'll Love Them. But I'm going to spare you that tonight. But I did come prepared.
How about just one? Are you sure?
All right. Well,
Okay,
we can
thank
do
you.
one. We had a request for one. All right.
He had one marked, by the way.
No. Actually, I had, oh my goodness. Okay. How does Santa wash his hands before he eats?
How?
With hand sanitizer. Sanitizer. That is,
Santa.
it doesn't get much better than that, folks. All right. Here we go. First of all, unfortunately, Mayor Bozeman left. I will have to admit, I was here for the vote for this conference center in 2003. And what he was eloquently talking about on the history was spot on from my recollection as well. I won't tell you how I vote. You can go ahead and look that up. But I do remember, it's still ingrained in my head, $406 square foot cost with $25 for tenant improvements. Wow, a lot of money back then. And I'm happy to report 15 years later, the city and attorney and I were able to negotiate a great deal to double our space at considerably less dollars. I will also say this is a beautiful space and I'm glad we have it. So I was a council member in the old city hall. I don't know how many people here were at the old city hall way back when in 2001, but it definitely needed being replaced. All right. So with my report, last meeting of the year, and this afternoon I was thinking about my report and I was reflecting on this year. We had a lot of things going on and I thought of something. I go, you all remember Josh Farley? He used to do all these great reports for the Kitsap Sun. Well, about 10, 11 years ago, he started doing these poems and he would summarize the Bremerton City Council in verse. And unfortunately, the current Kitsap Sun staff hasn't carried on with that tradition. So I would like to revisit, go back 10 years to 2014 and read his poem to you. As I read this, maybe think of some of the similarities between 2014 and 2024. And again, Josh wrote this as a lighthearted review. And you guys mock me for not having a costume. I will put on my hat and I will read this. So there you go. And I know I only got like 3 minutes left, so I don't know if I have this on right, but here we go. And so I don't violate any copyrights. This is called Presenting the Bremerton City's Council 2014 Year in Verse by Josh Farley, Kitsap Sun. And now I present to you, without further ado, the Bremerton City Council's 2014 Year in Verse. I feel like I should have Mr. Goodnow read this because he has a much better theater voice, but here I go. The Bremerton Council began this past year with a reduction in districts, only 7 voices to hear. A council of 9 was downgraded by 2, reduced by the voters in a quiet little coup. The council took up the call on many city issues, some mad, some glad, some requiring some tissues. The Pacific Avenue project was wrapping up fast, but its cost overruns left council members aghast. Why did the work require so much more funding? Public Works said, disregard all this number crunching, Mr. Nucky. There was nothing we could do. It was the clay that was crunchy. It cost a lot, but look now, the streets much more lovely. They shrugged and moved on, headed north up Wheaton Way, where it was the Planning Commission that had something to say. At Wheaton and Rydell, construction had been restricted, higher densities envisioned, but developers resisted. The council killed the sub area with a swipe of the pen, and within the same year, the cranes came again. Councilman Younger then decided that it was time to put raccoons in his crosshairs and make it a bigger fine. To keep feeding those critters, which get freaky in groups. And haven't you heard of the scary stuff they poop? This is true, this happened. All right. But if the raccoons brought a 7-0 vote, Washington Avenue would prove the opposite result. Option 1, option 3. What the heck do we pick? Does this sound familiar, like the bridge?
History repeating itself.
Meeting after meeting, nothing seemed to stick. When the dust cleared, the council chose a plan that looked awfully similar to the one they began. Then who should appear but the city's police chief, who continued his mission of giving thieves grief. To the council, he said, I cannot guarantee the safety of passengers driven by cabbies. But the chief wasn't through and asked the council to bring curbs on morning drunks and a ban on panhandling. Out of nowhere, it seemed, a proposal was sent to allow many a gambler to play to their heart's content. But almost the whole council had the same thing to say. For the Callow Avenue neighborhood, a casino? No way. The council resurrected a plan from last year to rename a street for Martin Luther King here. So what if it's short, the council would decide, let's name something for Dr. King and make it bona fide. In the fall, the mayor's budget was wrapped in a bow. New firefighters would help reduce the overtime blow. But police cameras would wait, giving Records Act woes, and no changes to the auditor. Stop stepping on his toes. For 2015, the council will see another eventful year, no doubt some controversy. On many different issues, they're sure to take a look, and who knows, maybe, if we're lucky, they'll finally Facebook. Have we? No, we haven't. All right, inside joke. That's the summary of 2014. I thought you maybe would like that if you weren't here for 2014. I found it kind of fun and reminiscing. In closing, I like to wish everyone a very happy holidays and happy new year. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. That is the longest report that I have been a part of since I've been on council, Councilor Younger. Next up, we have Vice President Mockler for District 6. I hope you have a poem too.
If everyone in this country had a pink car, what would we have? What? A pink carnation. I don't need it. I'm okay. First slide, please. District 6. My constituent Dan Herron runs this program, and if you know anyone who is looking to upgrade their skills, there's a moving Christmas tree, which is distracting. Next slide, please. I will be happy to email this to you, or you can find it online at Evergreen Goodwill of Northwest Washington. Next slide, please. 1 second. Yeah, Martita. I was not sent it bilingual, but you make an excellent objection, and I will do so in future. My bad. The 2025 point in time count, Kitsap County Human Services, Corey Derenberger of kitsap.gov. I really recommend that you do this. I've signed up for 3 shifts. Yo hablo español como una niña de 3 o 4 años y por eso no puedo trasladar este documento, pero hay personas ahí que pueden. Next slide, please. So, Garrett Jackson came to the town hall. This was, December 9th. Sorry, the month is blurring for me. And very valiantly presented the comprehensive plan as it applies to District 6 to a group of residents here seen looking quite skeptical. That this was just a moment, but even Garrett looked skeptical. So it was just skepticism was hovering and it descended on the town hall at this moment. It was a useful presentation and I thought people brought up useful points and we've already had one comment sent to the comp plan that I know about because I was CC'd. So please keep commenting on the comp plan because if you do it on Facebook, it stays on Facebook. Next slide, please. Oh, hang on. Can you go back really quickly, please, Dave? Thank you, Garrett. Next slide, please. So this is the District 6 Town Hall. That it's a little blurry in this slide, but don't worry, it's going to be absolutely sharp when it's happening in person. In 2025, same day, same place. Thank you, Public Works, for the conference room, but it will be at 5 to 6:30 p.m. to accommodate people who, work. The next one will be January 13th, and that will focus on chronic nuisance properties, as apparently there is increased interest of people who say, wait, there's something the government can do about chronic nuisance properties? I would like to know what. So that's what the January 13th town hall will be about. The February 10th, just to lightly touch, will be about getting general budget priorities from people who live in District 6 or just want to comment. Next slide, please. Really? No. Okay. Well, then I will just no more slides, please. So I would just like to welcome a new business to District 6. It came in March, but since it's on one of those places set off of Kitsap Way, that's how long it takes to notice a new business. They copy, they print, they ship, they scan, they fax, they shred. It's right behind the family pancake house. It's called Express Mail LLC. Lori Senecola and Pam, I can't remember her last name, run the place. They will also do any kind of shipping, gift wrapping, business cards, flyers, all of the services that I have been calling for in Bremerton are right here in West Bremerton. Halla freaking Lulia. Okay, one sec. Sorry, I did send this other slide. Okay. Nope, I did not. I would like to wish everybody a good Yontif, a happy Christmas, and a very happy New Year. May your New Year bring you something extremely wonderful and then some more wonderful things. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, District 5, Michael Goodnow.
No jokes, no poems, but I just want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday and a happy new year. And thanks for everybody who's been coming consistently and being respectful at public recognition. And thanks to staff for supporting us throughout the year. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilor Bobolowski is gone tonight. Next up, District 3, Councilor Coughlin.
Oh, thank you, Council President. No slides for me tonight, but I want to echo the thanks to all our neighbors who spoke up tonight and who come to council meetings and speak up. Just a couple to respond to. Definitely appreciate the comments on nuisance properties. I joined Councilmember Mockler the other month to hear from neighbors in her district on some of the properties that have been languishing, and neighbors of drug houses and other nuisance properties that are just never addressed fast enough. And so these impact the health and peace of our neighborhoods and our neighbors. And it's definitely something that we as a city have to find a way to address faster. For Marchita, gracias Marchita, gracias tú y otros por su trabajo con nuestros vecinos hispánicos. Absolutamente debemos proteger nuestros vecinos y asegurarnos de que tengan acceso equitativo a los recursos que necesitan. So thank you, Martita, and absolutely we need to protect our Hispanic neighbors and assure that they have equitable access to all the same resources. And thanks to Mayor Bozeman, I cannot believe it's been 20 years for that building, but what great leadership and vision for building that building, and ensuring we have a facility for our public service and ensuring transparency and collaboration. And I just want to close echoing some other council members. Thank you so much to our city staff. They do so much. Our council staff is absolutely incredible in dealing with so much volume of public comments and 7 council members, different council presidents, sometimes every year. They are just incredible. And thank you to everyone in legal, not just for amazing award-winning costumes, but really helping navigate some really tricky situations and finding the best path forward for everyone in Bremerton. And thanks to everybody in our public safety and parks and public works and finance and PCAT and wastewater and sewer and everyone else. I'm sure I'm not, even able to mention everybody, but it's really incredible the dedication that the city staff have for this city and the work they do. And dealing with sometimes not just one boss, but many bosses and many voices. And they just work so hard to try and find the best product for our city. And so just my appreciation and a happy new year. And I can't wait to see what we get to do next year. Thanks all.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coughlin. Next up, we have District 2, Councillor Fry.
No real report tonight. I just want to tell you that I miss you all and I'll see you soon, flying back home tomorrow. And I feel a lot of joy and hope at this time of year. And I definitely am looking forward to working with y'all next year. We've got a lot of work coming up for us, and I can't imagine a better group to do it with. Happy holidays to all, and happy holidays to Bremerton.
Thank you. Okay, next up is District 1. Hey, that's me. I have a couple of slides. I wish I had gotten better pictures. I had a couple pictures sent. I brag a lot about the Adopt a Spot litter program, litter pickup program that happens at Cafe Perfetto. Well, Brian Stevenson, owner of the joint, got the Golden Picker Award. And it's actually pretty special. I think we have some stats next. I could try to get a picture of him. He's like, this is all he gave me. So, so his picker. Adopted shoulder miles, 15.25. Events reported 13, which is pretty phenomenal. Volunteers, 247 hours of the volunteers, 700 bags collected, 294. Look at the total pounds of trash. That's in tons. How many is it? 1,000, 2,000, which is, what's a ton? 2.5 tons of garbage that this program has lifted. It's a pretty amazing program, and super big props to Brian and his team. And these are dedicated volunteers. You can go ahead and take those off now. They're dedicated volunteers that go out. I mean, they don't go out in November and December and January. I mean, they go out a significant part of the year and clean up, Warren Avenue, Stephenson Canyon, all over District 1, parts of District 2, and super grateful for their efforts. Okay, here we are at the end of the meeting, and you guys have stuck around. Y'all have stuck around. Just quickly, I wanted to kind of address a concern about public comment. As we learned early in the year, there's laws, there's RCWs that dictate the free speech of what of how public recognition can be held. As long as somebody is not threatening death or waving a weapon, they can kind of say whatever filthy crap they want. And we learned that the hard way, right? So it can be hurtful to hear some things that people say, but we are a place for free speech, as ugly and as beautiful as it may be. And so thank you for participating in it and sharing the good news that you have, and the negative and positive feedback about the city. We want to hear both, right? I wanted to give a few highlights of 2024. I'm going to go over my 5 minutes, by the way. I'm going to take my liberties tonight, but I want to talk about a few of the highlights. From 2024, first of all, I'm pretty excited that not only have we decided as a council to go to two-year goals, but also that coincides with a biennial budget. That's going to be a lot of time saved with our staff and finance department, but also it's going to help us prioritize our projects better and be able to plan better for them. We had, I think nearly everybody had a district hall to a district town hall to talk about the comprehensive plan. And Garrett did a lot of legwork getting out there to all those different meetings. And I have really grown to respect the way that Mr. Jackson handles the public. And I'm so appreciative of the respect and kindness that you show to people, even when they're frustrated. And that frustration is often valid. We see it here, and people come and they're feeling hurt and they're feeling unheard, and those feelings are valid. But I have grown to really appreciate the kindness in which you show the public in those moments. We had a heavy lift at the beginning of the year with not only discussing anti-Semitism, but also in planning, creating a plan for our houseless community. And so the year started off quite heavy. We addressed those topics early on, and we're still working to come up with solutions with our amazing housing task force for our shelter. That'll happen in the coming years. There's so many other things that we could talk about. And we're going to see there's projects that are going to continue to be in the works for the next couple of years. I'm really excited to see how the Warren Avenue Bridge project will come to fruition, and very grateful that it's still in the priorities for Inslee's budget. And then just some personal things I wanted to kind of check in about. I won't be running for re-election for council president. So this will be, I'm taking liberties because it's my last final words here as council president. It's been a great year, I guess. I have a program of recovery that I work where every evening when I go home, I take what's called an inventory, a daily inventory. And what that means is I go home and I ask myself, was I selfish or prideful? Did I listen to others? Did I work in collaboration? Did I? In so many ways, I just kind of check my behavior, my intentions, and I work this program of recovery as part of being clean and sober. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that it's extremely relevant to me in how I work here with you and in service to the community. I am a person who has in the past created a lot of chaos and a lot of harm and hurt a lot of people. So when I work in my program of recovery, it's very important to me to right those wrongs, to generate peace, to be kind, to check my ego. And I hope that I've done that this year. I hope that in working with staff and working with my fellow counselors and in my interactions with the public, that I've been respectful and kind to you. I came with no agenda except to have a peaceful, calm year. And I do feel like that's been accomplished. There's times where you have to push hard. And sometimes you also have to take moments to be at peace, which is healing. We all need peace and healing and rest. And as we move into this holiday season, that's what I want for you too. I want you to have peace and rest and calm and love and all the warmth that you deserve. And it's just been my absolute privilege to be your council president this year. I believe I am the first woman since Carol Aarons. I think it was 2003 that she was last president. Is that right? I believe so. So it was about time that a woman sat in this leadership position. There's been a lot of firsts since I've been on council. I've had 3 years of queers as council president, so that's pretty great. And I believe I'm the first queer woman to serve as council president. I did learn that I'm not the first justice involved person to sit on council. But that's for you to find out through public records if you want. Go back in the papers. I don't know where it's at. But serving in this capacity has been just, again, an absolute privilege. Serving with the first all-woman leadership team that Bremerton's ever had on council. That's a big deal. And let's hope it's not the last time this happens. And it's pretty remarkable that this is the first time that there's been 2 women in leadership in council. And in nearly every picture that I see on that wall, there's a woman that's been on council. So 1, 2, or 3 women on council. So thank you. I believe that is all. And let me read the rest of this script for the last time here about the adjournment. And I also want to thank our staff who creates these scripts, because I don't know how I would have gotten through this year without them. There will be no meeting next week, Wednesday, December 25th, because it's Christmas. So happy holidays in whatever way you celebrate. We're doing something a little different for New Year's. Instead of on January 1st, which is the Wednesday that the meeting falls on, it defaults to the next day, which is Thursday. So we're going to be meeting on Thursday, January 2nd, beginning at 5:30 in the first floor meeting chambers. We'll immediately begin with elections for new council president and vice president. And, oh, there's more. Hold on. I'll read the script. As a reminder, the public is invited to attend in person or remotely, but anyone wishing to speak during public recognition via Zoom must submit their request to the city clerk by calling 360-473-5323 at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. This concludes tonight's